very, very excited today to have my dear friend and colleague, Frank Anderson, join me for a discussion on building trust between parts, between therapist and client. And, Frank and I go back to the early days of trauma, ancient times, 1995. And Frank is now a trainer for IFS and a worldwide expert on the treatment of trauma, and very exciting, author of the new book, Transcending Trauma, which I highly recommend. So, Frank, talk to us about this issue of trust in the context of trauma. I mean, I think everyone knows that trust is an issue after trauma, but you bring a particular perspective from IFS.
Yes, definitely. Well, first off, just thank you for having me. It's always lovely to share space with you, even if it's virtual.
Yes.
So it's wonderful and lovely to be here. So thank you for that. Yeah, I love this course. I love the way you're focusing on this whole issue of relationships because it's complicated. I remember way back in the day, I didn't want to be a family therapist or a couples therapist because there were so many versions of relationships that you had to focus on. And then so many moving parts. But then when I shifted my work from the trauma center over to IFS, internal family systems, more exclusively, and started doing internal individual work, I thought, oh my God, it's just as complicated. So even when you're working with an individual and their internal system, tons of relationships, very complicated internally. So not only is it people's relationships in trust building externally with people in their lives, IFS really focuses on the internal relationship, as well as the therapeutic relationship. I think about IFS as internal attachment therapy. Right. That's kind of the way that I think about it, right? Because it's, for those of you, I guess I'll just say very briefly, for those of you who don't know, IFS is so aligned with what Janina does in her work, because we've been working with parts together, Janina, from way back when, since 1995. And, IFS may have certain terms like a preventative part, which we call a manager, or a reactive or extreme part, which we call firefighter, and also those exiled or wounded parts, which is where we do a lot of our healing. But IFS also has this essence, and different people call it different things. We call it in IFS self-energy, this internal wisdom, this internal locus of control. It's, some people call it the higher self. Some people connect to it spiritually, that have a spiritual dimension to it, which I certainly personally experience. But the way I think about self-energy is a state of being, is the way I like to talk about it. It's like a maximal flow state. When I'm in self-energy, everything's okay. All the parts really relax. And there is this essence and being inside. And I think I really do, it feels to me like maximal integration.